Hey there, friends. This is Mike. Welcome you back to the Soundstage EDU podcast. I want to start today by saying something that might surprise you a little bit. And it's this, that most people don't hate bylaws because they're boring. They hate them because they likely have a long history of seeing them used badly. Not poorly, badly. People will use them to shut people down and shut them out. They're used to protect power instead of the people that they serve. And sometimes people will use them as a shield instead of a support for their organization. So today I want to talk about what bylaws are actually supposed to do and why they so often fail the very communities that they're meant to serve. You hear me talk about bylaws a lot. I think one of my staple questions are, what do your bylaws say about that? And in many times, my simply asking that question causes the conversation to stop. I mean, if your eyes glaze over when someone says bylaws, I get it. I feel that because I'm living in that space with you all. But it's not for the reasons you might think. It's not a lack of knowledge or a lack of understanding. It's something completely different. For a lot of folks, bylaws feel like control or red tape. Or because someone always says, well, we've always done it this way. Or in many cases, they're a tool that's used after someone has gotten hurt and not before. And when structure only shows up to discipline, never to protect, people will naturally learn to fear it. And I see this played out many, many times in a lot of the conversations I have with people. The minute the bylaws come up, they get defensive. Their posture changes, their tone changes. You can hear the energy in their breath change. And it's not because they don't have bylaws or the bylaws are bad. They've just never been used to help them structurally. Whenever the bylaws come out, it's usually at a point of discipline or a point of a problem. And I want you to understand that when those things happen, you're not seeing a people problem. You're seeing a design problem. You're seeing bylaws that were used to weaponize the situation. But here's what I want you to understand. At their core, bylaws, despite the name having law in it, bylaws are not about rules. They're about predictability. Good bylaws answer questions before emotions have the opportunity to start running hot. They decide things for you ahead of time. Like, who decides what? How are these roles actually defined? Or even, what happens when someone burns out? And probably most importantly, how do we as an organization handle conflict fairly? Healthy bylaws reduce stress because it doesn't require people to guess in any situation that comes up. And when people don't have to guess, they're not going to fight. They won't have to fight. They won't have to argue. They won't have to raise voices. They won't have to raise the temperature of the room because you have bylaws that are guiding you through the principles of your organization. However, I've seen these bylaws fail many times. And it's usually around three specific reasons. Number one, in many cases, the bylaws were copied. They weren't designed. They were pulled from another organization without regard for culture or capacity. Maybe they were found on another booster group's website and they just copied them. But what you need to understand is that there's a specific culture for that organization that you copied them from. There's a certain flow. There's a certain process. There's a certain understanding. Maybe that group that you copied them from because you see maybe an example of them running well and you want to run like them. But you need to understand that those bylaws were not haphazardly produced. At least we're going to hope that that wasn't the case. If you're copying them from a strong organization, there's a good chance that that organization sat down and discussed their very reality to create those bylaws to prevent any future issues. So you can't just copy and paste them. They need to be designed. You can't copy them from some bylaws farming website, a boilerplate is what you're going to hear that in legal terms. The boilerplate does serve a good purpose. It's a jumping off point. But you still have to go in there and actually design the document to serve your group well. And if that's what you're doing, I know there's companies out there that you can pay to get access to their boilerplates. And they will say things like, this is booster forward. We are a booster organization. We are a booster foundation organization. And there's nothing wrong with those groups. But a lot of the problems that I'm seeing that come out of those types of scenarios are happening because they didn't properly and fully vet the bylaws that they were pulling into their system. They didn't look for red flags. They didn't look for gaps. Another reason that bylaws will fail in real life is that they will only show up during a conflict. When that happens, you're teaching people that your bylaws are a weapon and not a resource. That's why I mentioned that people will weaponize them. The bylaws need to always stand guard and always stand on their own 2 feet in any dialogue, in any segment of a meeting, in any operation. The bylaws need to be present. Not only used when you need them. And number 3, I've seen bylaws used to protect positions instead of the people. So you've got titles over humans, authority over sustainability. The bylaws are there to protect your people. We are there to protect the people that are serving the greater cause of this organization, the program, the kids, the art. When the bylaws don't reflect how work actually happens, people will stop trusting them. And once that starts, at some point, they're going to ignore them altogether. That's why, if you're in a situation that your bylaws have failed you, this is probably why. You can point back to one of these reasons, or maybe all of them. And yeah, there are more. But these are the ones that I see the most. Here's what I want you to start thinking about. This is what I want you to sit with for a moment. Structure is care. And here's why. When you have structure in place, not just vibes, you will have clear expectations. And when those expectations are clear, you're going to naturally reduce the anxiety in the room. You will have defined roles when you have a structure in place. When the roles are defined, you're going to prevent burnout because you're not going to have people jumping from role to role or place to place, doing things that they were never meant to carry. And when your processes are outlined within your bylaws, they become transparent. When you write the bylaws to specifically yield to transparency, you're going to protect relationships. Because you're going to rely on structure and not personalities. Because personalities can be flawed. So as you can see, when you have a good bylaw structure in place, they're not there to control. They're about relief. Because when they're solid, everyone knows the expectations. And just like circling back, everybody has expectations and they're clear, everybody's anxiety comes down. You start to bring the anxiety in the room down, the room starts to regulate better, and logic can stay engaged longer. having a good structure is how we stop relying on heroics, how we stop relying on that one parent that does everything, how we stop relying on the personality that just gets it done. When we start doing that, we start building systems that don't require people to sacrifice themselves. I'm seeing that happen more and more. People are sacrificing themselves for the program. And we can't have that because that is not sustainable. Even in 1-year terms. I mean, this is why Soundstage EDU is building governance resources that are practical and human and usable in the real world. On the website, you'll find plain language governance explanations. We're adding to that as often as we can. We're going to have culture forward frameworks on there and tools designed to help you fix systems without blowing things up. Soon, we're going to have an intelligent program on there that's going to interview you, ask you the right questions, and build your bylaws for your reality, not a boilerplate. I mean, yeah, it's going to spit out a document that you can copy and paste, but I'm also going to tell you, and that document's going to tell you that this is not perfect, that this still needs to rely on human decision, that this still needs to be discussed, this still needs to be voted on. This needs to be looked at by everybody and adopted by everybody. Because if you've ever thought, with your current system, your current structure, your current setup, if you've ever thought, I know something's broken, but I don't know where to start, this is where you're going to be able to start. You can come to us. You can come to our tools. They don't judge. They don't remember. They're there only to work in the moment that you're in. Inside of our Soundstage EDU Insider Space, we're going to go much deeper into this because it is critical. We've talked about in the past, and we're going to continue to talk about in the future, how to repair broken governance, how to introduce structure without triggering defensiveness, and how to protect directors, volunteers, and kids at the same time. And we're actively working to make that space, the Soundstage EDU Insiders, a much more accessible space for everybody. As soon as Spotify allows it, the subscription will move to $2.99 a month, because these conversations shouldn't be limited to people with extra resources. That's always our mission. If we were able to do all of this stuff for nothing, we would. But that's not sustainable for us either. So go join the Insider Space. Join the Insiders feed on Spotify. Get the in-depth episodes. Let us know you're there, and we'll let you into the private group for the Soundstage EDU Insiders, where you can have dialogue with real, live, active booster board members. If this episode helped reframe something for you in this space, share it. There are a lot of good people stuck inside of bad systems, and maybe you're one of them. And sometimes the most powerful thing that we can offer is language that lowers the temperature. If you believe in keeping work like this open and accessible for everybody, that's why we created the Soundstage EDU Access Initiative. It helps support free tools like the Soundstage EDU Cooler and our governance resources, and incoming the Bylaws Architect. Listen, good bylaws don't make your leaders smaller. They make people safer. Because they're not there to replace trust, they're there to protect it. And when structure is built with care, people don't burn out trying to hold everything together. They get to do the work that they came here to do. And everyone's going to be better for that. We can focus on the work that we're doing, supporting our kids, edifying the program, giving them the things they need that the district can't. That's where the good bylaws come in. They keep us steady. But until next time, I want to thank you all for being here. Make sure you're following the show. Make sure you're sharing, following us on social media, all the things. And as always, let's raise the bar together. And I'll see you in the next episode.